Donald Trump has issued a stark warning to Britain, telling Keir Starmer that the United States won't be there to help you anymore. In a fiery attack over the escalating Iran conflict, President Trump criticised the UK and other allies for refusing to take part in military strikes. He told them bluntly to get your own oil, and suggested Britain should take responsibility for reopening the Strait of Hormuz, a critical route for global energy supplies. The US president also reignited his personal row with Sir Keir Starmer, accusing the British government of failing to act. He claimed the UK had refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran and warned Britain to start learning how to fight for yourself. This recent attack is now amongst a long line of digs from the US president to Sir Keir Starmer.
Unfortunately, Keir is not Winston Churchill. I was not happy with the UK. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with. The UK say that we'll send, this is 3 weeks ago, we'll send our aircraft carriers, which aren't the best aircraft carriers, by the way. They're toys compared to what we have.
The comments come as economic fears grow back home.
Try this 11-minute trick to instantly restore your phone's original speed.
Come as economic fears grow back home. The International Monetary Fund has warned the UK is among the most exposed major economies to the fallout from the Middle East conflict. Britain's heavy reliance on gas-fired power leaves it particularly vulnerable to rising energy prices, and the pressure is already building. Reports suggest the UK could receive its last known shipment of jet fuel from the Middle East this week, as disruption in the region begins to bite. Petrol and diesel prices are also climbing, driven by supply concerns linked to instability around the Strait of Hormuz. GB News presenter Bev Turner has been speaking directly to President Trump and gave us a sense of what it is like to be in the room with the US president.
Free speech, censorship, and growing concerns of online privacy are all we are seeing at the moment. Hello, I'm Patrick Christys, and today I'm joined by Pete Membry, who is the Chief Research Officer for ExpressVPN. Thank you very much for joining us, Pete. I'm hoping that you might be able to explain to our viewers and listeners exactly what the product is all about. So, can we just start by asking, what is a VPN, and why do people need one?
A VPN is a tool that helps improve your privacy. And this is basically because the way the internet was originally conceived and built, it was all designed to be very open and very trusting place. And as the internet has kind of moved on in advance and things have become more commercial, there's a lot more risks. And so what a VPN does is it creates a link from your device to one of our secure servers, and all of your traffic then goes in a protected tunnel to those servers, and then you access the internet from there.
And right now, you can get up to 82% off ExpressVPN. Click the link below or scan the QR code now.
I'm joining you from outside the White House here in Washington, D.C. And so the significance of today's cabinet meeting was immense. Everybody was in the room. We had Scott Bessent there. We had Pete Hegseth there, Marco Rubio. Robert Kennedy was there, of course. J.D. Vance. Susie Wiles, the whole cabinet was there, Lutnick, Wickoff. So there was a lot to talk about today. As usual, President Trump held the room. There was quite a lot of detail about the way that Iran's military has been degraded. There was also talk about how many of the Iranian leaders have been taken out. Obviously, the reporters in the room were keen to know how this would affect the American citizens in this country. And then it was my turn to ask a question, and I was able to ask this. Thank you. You've been really honest about how disappointed you are in Sir Keir Starmer, particularly in relation to Iran. So I'm curious about your phone calls with him, how easy they might be. And also, were you surprised by...
Are we talking about Starmer?
Yes.
Yeah.
And are you surprised by how weak...
I think he's a lovely man. I do. I think he's a lovely man. But I think he did something that was shocking. He didn't want to help us. And maybe in particular that country, the longest bond, the longest ally, because we spend trillions of dollars protecting Europe, protecting the countries of NATO. They weren't there for us.
It was very clear from being in the room that President Trump is hurt by the UK's response to his request for help in Iran. Yes, he's angry. Yes, he's disappointed. But above all else, I think he feels really hurt by what he sees as his closest ally. He did say he's a nice man, Keir Starmer, but he did say he's a liberal. He didn't explain to him why the UK wasn't able to provide more military support. Then we talked about the King's upcoming visit to this building behind me. I was just going to say, does it affect the state visit with the King that you're going to have in April? Are you looking forward to that?
With the King?
With the King coming here?
No, he's a friend of mine. He's a great gentleman. As you know, he honored me and our country. He really honored our country. But we had an amazing time. I've known him as Prince Charles. I know him as King Charles. I'm proud of him. He's fighting a tough battle. He's tough. I think he's a fantastic. It has nothing to do with that. It's different. But he's going to be here very soon, as you know. We're going to have a state dinner. It's going to be great.
So all eyes continue to be on America and their military operation in Iran. But if the confidence in that room is anything to go by, they have things very much under control.
GB News' US correspondent Stephen Edgington has also responded to President Trump's attacks on the UK.
We speak to our US correspondent now, Steve Edgington, who's listening in to the whole conference as well. Can give us a bit more context around this. Stephen, do you think that this war will really be concluded in the 4 to 6 week timeline that Donald Trump has repeatedly set out for it?
Why do Japanese families...
Timeline that Donald Trump has repeatedly set out for it?
I think it looks unlikely with this massive deployment of thousands of US Marines to the Middle East. That's on top of the already around 50,000 US soldiers in that region. And if you look at previous actions from Donald Trump, when he builds up the military in this way, he tends to use it. Now, that's not to say there's no chance that Trump wants to wrap up the war quickly, but I think there's a difficult off-ramp for him here, especially with the Israeli campaign against Hezbollah in Lebanon and Israeli strikes against Tehran. It really seems that Donald Trump needs to get some kind of win out of this. And so far, despite everything we've just heard from Pete Hegseth and Dan Kane, the US hasn't sort of achieved any of its massive strategic goals, which of course was essentially regime change and removing the ability of Iran to produce nuclear weapons. Of course, Iran has a massive stockpile of uranium that has been heavily enriched. It's not quite at the grade that you require to make a nuclear bomb yet. And one thing that a lot of US talk show hosts have been talking about, who Donald Trump listens to and loves to promote, is that the United States needs to go in and take this nuclear enriched material. So that would involve a ground campaign. We've also seen talk of the United States taking Karg Island, where Iran processes 90% of its oil and exports a huge amount of its oil. And Donald Trump has also talked about taking Iran's oil. So I think it looks unlikely the war is going to end in the short term. However, there is a huge domestic pressure on Donald Trump to do so. His opinion ratings are in free fall. The popularity of the Republicans on all sorts of issues, including the economy, immigration, and jobs, are incredibly low, including this Iran war. And gas prices have just hit a $4 for a gasoline in the US, and basically up from about $3 on average. And this is a huge impact on American workers. Obviously, Americans massively rely on driving and fueling their cars. So there's a lot of domestic pressure on Donald Trump here to end the war. Now, overnight, he also criticized, or this morning, I should say, criticized the United Kingdom for our inaction in helping the United States in their war effort. He told us that we should be going and getting the oil from the Straits of Hormuz ourselves, or buying oil from the United States. Particularly, he was talking about jet fuel. Jet fuel prices around the world have skyrocketed again because 20% of the world's oil supply goes through the Strait of Hormuz. A big chunk of that is jet oil. And you're already seeing, airplane prices around the world going up. You're seeing flights being cancelled across the world. So there is huge pressure here on Donald Trump to come to some kind of conclusion. Whether it will happen in the short term or the medium term is the big question.
The new